You can catch today's guests on the sidelines, making sure local athletes can continue to compete at their very best. Joining me now, it's Robyn Gust from Trinity Sports Medicine. You've seen her at all these games in and around town here helping local athletes and anybody that needs help. She's just a helpful person. Robyn, why did you want to become a sports trainer in the first place way back when,
Well, interestingly enough, I got interested in it by an athletic trainer that actually worked at Trinity. I'm a local kid. I graduated from Newburgh High School when it was just Newburgh. We weren't west of Newburgh service at that time for basketball or for football. We were basketball, volleyball, those types of things were on their own.
Still just the Eagles or whatever,
right.
yeah.
We were just the Eagles. Go Eagles, go! Right. Always, once an Eagle, always an Eagle.
Still got it for volleyball. Yeah.
Yep, true. And I was in a car accident my junior year, and I messed up my knee, among other things. And I saw Mark Romanek, who was an athletic trainer at Trinity, for my knee. And I saw him at the auditorium when we were playing, I think we were playing Velva that day at the auditorium. It was kind of a basketball day. And talked to him about I'm like, what do you do? And he explained it to me. And I'm like, you have the coolest job ever. So the person who actually inspired me was actually from the place that I work now. So I just think that's really cool. And now Mark is a doctorate of physical therapy, and he teaches in the physical therapy program at UND.
I was curious
all the time.
Yeah, I was curious if there was anything other than just, being closer to Newburgh and home when you made the move to Trinity from Huron down in South Dakota.
It was just kind of timing was good. I was really burning out at Huron. I was the only one there, and we had as many sports as we do at Minot State, actually, as well as men's soccer, and I was the one and only. And it was 100 hours a week, and I was starting to really burn out, and I was worried because didn't know what I was doing at the end of the day, and I'm like, wow, I could hurt somebody. And it just happened that there was a job opening at Trinity at that time when things were really not going well down there, and I was really worried about my own health, physically and mentally, and the health of my athletes at Huron. So I threw my hat in the ring and came and interviewed, and obviously things went well from there.
Do you think, obviously, like you have more coworkers now, I guess, in that situation, but you have colleagues and stuff if you go to other schools, maybe around Huron. Is that a common discussion at all, even to be like, hey, we got to make sure us as trainers, we're good to go because we can't really have like any kind of lapse because if somebody gets hurt, we got to be there for them,
Right. We really try to avoid burnout if at all possible. October is obviously one of our most challenging months because that's when we have the crossover of the fall sports and the winter sports at the collegiate level that start. So, and everything's just going, and you have games for everybody and practices for everybody. So that's really something that we try to pay attention of, and we have such a great staff at Trinity for our sports medicine group. If somebody's having a rough day or if they're like not feeling well, somebody always steps up to the plate and goes, okay, I can cover that for you. Go take a break.
Did that come up during your personal education, or even maybe now do you kind of get that across now that you're teaching athletic training programs in addition to just, helping teams in the games?
I think the biggest drive for me was my personal experience at Huron because it was very unfair, the way I was treated by, the chancellor at that time. It was very unrealistic for one person to take care of all of those athletes, and I was also the program director for education. So many hats, and there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only do so much. And I almost left the profession because of that. And the eye-opening thing for me was one of my students wanted to drop out of the program, and I was devastated because she was such a great student, and she was really had a lot of potential, very smart. And I said, what's driving you to want to leave the profession? Because I think you'd be great. And her exact words were, I don't want to work like you do.
Dang.
And that was like a gut punch to me because I went, I'm not setting a very good example for these kids to take care of myself. I'm putting everybody first. And you still, that's kind of I don't want to say weakness of the profession, but it's kind of how we're built is we care for others. And sometimes we kind of put our own care on the back burner. And you have to learn that you care, you matter just as much as the people that you're taking care of. And if you're out of the picture, there's nobody to take care of those people. So that was really something ingrained in me from coming here. That's why we really try to avoid, if we've got a tournament, we don't have one person working that tournament all day. After two games, you're kind of you're on the verge of going, wow, I'm tired. Am I paying attention like I should? We really try to make sure that we share the wealth so that we're doing the best job that we can, that we're not getting overtired and we're not burning out. We really try to help each other do that. And it's inevitable that sometimes it does happen, but we try to avoid it whenever we can.
It sounds like it's a real like under the radar part of your job. I mean, we've been on for like 5 minutes and I didn't even think about that. And I was just trying to like, segue to why do you want to teach it in addition to just helping the teams at the games? Because I'm not even thinking about like how busy you guys can be. Sometimes people think like, oh, good thing the trainer doesn't have to do anything on game night because that means nobody gets hurt. But let's talk about just why do you want to be a teacher on top of a trainer?
Athletic trainer.
Athletic trainer.
Yep, I gotta correct that, or I'm gonna get in trouble with everybody in our profession. But
love it.
Athletic trainer.
That's what we're here for.
That's
drive
right.
the controversy.
Education. No. Because I feel that I'm an old school athletic trainer. The way that we did it when I was in school is I had the keys to the gym. I was the first one there, and I locked up when I left. That was the wrong way to do it. And so you take those. My feeling is when you have a negative, you learn from that negative and turn it into a positive in some way. So you want to take those negative experiences that you went, I did this and we're not going to do it that way because it's not right. And teach these kids, ethics, morals, values, how not to hurt someone. I think that's when I teach prevention care, which that was a class I've taught for many, many years. My goal in that class is to teach those students how to care for someone, but more importantly, how not to hurt them. They need to have the knowledge to go, this is how far my knowledge goes, and now I need to send them to somebody else. That's really, really important. You need to know your limits, teach them that it's okay to say, I'm not sure what this is, but I'm either going to look it up or I'm going to find somebody that's smarter than me that can help you. And I think that that's really important, that we don't let our egos get in the way of our care for somebody and get that through people's heads, that we're not always going to have the answers. And I did have one parent that said, you don't know. And I said, no, honestly, I don't, because this is something very unusual. I haven't seen a lot, and I can look it up. Or if you'd prefer for me to guess, I'd be happy to do that for you. They're like, oh, no, look it up, that's fine. And then it ended up being this really obscure thing that I wasn't sure about. So I think it's important to show our future, of the profession, how we feel that the right way to do things and what we've done in the past that's wrong. Don't do these things. We did these, they're wrong. So I think that there's just so much, I've got so much experience that I can share with our young professionals that I feel that there's a lot of value there for them to learn from, to be a good mentor to them.
In athletic training, obviously the goal is to get back to health. And Robyn, your personality, you're you, and all that stuff. I'm curious, is there any similarity at all? Do athletes respond any better when they're in like a training setting to heal an injury? Like you hear about players, coaches, and then coaches that demand. Does that ever happen in the training sphere, or is it just all encouragement?
I think it's about. And it's kind of how because I'm the manager of the department, I feel that you really have to, as an athletic trainer and as a supervisor and manager, you work to the personality of the person. You can't cookie cut everything. You can't treat athletes the same. Every athlete that walks in the door has a different personality, and it's up to us to learn how they best respond. Some kids best respond to get your butt moving, you're better than this, and then other athletes are not going to respond to that well. So it's about learning what their buttons are that you can push to get them to give you what you need out of them so that they can get better. And some of them, and let's say it's a high school senior football player who's also an amazing baseball player and they've just tore their ACL, that's the season for them. So now how do we make sure that mentally they're okay as well as physically and get them back where they need to be? So you have to kind of enter into that person's mind a little bit and try to get into their psyche a little bit, and that's how you're going to get the best out of them.
And does it work the same whether it's like a broken bone couple of weeks versus you got to friggin' run into a wall over and over again to train from a torn ACL?
I think the long-term injuries are the harder ones, the ones where a student athlete loses the season. I look at, I've been worried about our men's hockey team since the moment I heard they canceled the tournament. Not just physical injuries, but mentally, what does that do to our kids who don't get a chance to defend their title? It's not an injury, but it's devastating to them. All the kids, any senior that lost their year this year because there was no spring sports, or these kids who are coming back now, that's been a kind of a concern of mine and I think all of our staff is, we got to make sure these kids are mentally okay. They've had their world turned upside down, and things are so different. So every kid that walks in the door, the first thing isn't what happened to you. It's like, hey, how are you doing? See what kind of a day they're having, and kind of measure them up a little bit. Or if you know them well and they look like you shouldn't ask them that question, wait until the right time when you're on your own with them and go, okay, so what's up? Because you're not acting like yourself. But you got to get to know the kids, and that's the great part about us being at the same schools that we're at. We get to know those baseball players, basketball players, softball players. We get to know them as people, not just athletes, as well as the families. For the high schools, and we get to know the families and everything as well.
For maybe you or some of the staff that you work with a lot, do you guys kind of get most of that interaction like on the campus, or is it at the spot at the Mesa?
Well, I mean, everybody has their own locations that they go to, so I think it's a matter of the kids as well as their parents become familiar with you as you come into the gym. Unless it's, if I'm at our Redeemers mostly, and Minot State hockey and Minot State, but I do fill in other places. But people get familiar with you, and they're like, oh yeah, you're that lady that works with the MSU hockey team, and I'm like, yep. And then it might lead into something else. So I think it's familiarity with consistency on where we go, And Kevin Melby's been here longer than I have, and Barb Nesheim's been here longer than I have. So everybody knows. Yeah, between the three of us, we're over 60 years of experience in athletic training, and everybody knows who they or who I am because we've been here for so long. So you just develop those relationships, and then people go, oh, go see Barb. I saw her for this, and she can help you out. So it's just, and you develop that reputation of knowing what you're doing for sure, and then making sure that you provide them quality care.
How do you think, since your time with Trinity, how has Trinity Sports Medicine gotten the most better, the biggest advancement that they had? And then as you turn the page looking into the future, where do you guys want to go?
Oh man, when I started at Trinity Sports Medicine, we had, I think, 4.5 athletic trainers, and we were at not all of the schools that we're at now. And Dr. Mattern was in her residency at UND. That's when I started here. And now, after Dr. Mattern went to the Ohio State University and got her sports medicine fellowship, and we were able to bring her back, that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to us, because she is amazing. And she just, has so much great knowledge for sports injuries, and we really rely on her to help guide us with our knowledge, as well as education, and that's a huge thing for us.
It's good to see that something good came out of Ohio State. Way to go. Okay, good.
I'm not going to go there, man.
Yeah.
You can take that up with her.
Yeah.
And then when Mr. Kutch came on, and we talked with him about our strategic plan with Dr. Mattern, met with him about our strategic plan and how we wanted to expand. I mean, now we've got 12 full-time athletic trainers. I also teach up at Minot State in the education program there, and I've taught at MSU for 19 of my 20 years here. Didn't teach the first year that I was here, but just expanding into those schools, as well as our faster injury prevention program has been a huge success for us, and I think we're in our 15th or 16th year of that we run in the summer with the kids, as well as at the Mesa. That's something that's great. Our concussion education, we try to do education with any group that wants education about anything, whether it be heat, illness, prevention of injuries, those types of things. We've just gone almost. Sometimes it's almost like we try to do too much, so we might have to back off. I mean, we've gotten calls. We've covered tournaments in Underwood and Garrison and stuff if we're available, but a lot of times where people want us to be, sometimes we still don't have the people. But I think that is a testament to the type of services that we provide, that they know that we're going to come in and do a good job for them.
When you're talking about like the education aspect, are you talking to like trainers at seminars? I think athletes and coaches come. I remember the one guy from Kenmare that works with the Angels on North Hill. A lot of coaches were there too. But how much does that kind of help? You can tell people like this is how you can avoid an injury better. I mean, some of it's in the prep, but like when you're in the moment of the game, you're going to be going for the ball or anything like that. I mean, how much can that help when you're playing?
Well, we haven't done a ton of big, large education sessions for many athletes like that, like we did with when Eric Munson came. That was something we really wanted them. If they took one pearl of wisdom away from that talk, great. That's what we wanted. But also to get the coaches a little bit more knowledgeable about what they should look for. But the concussion talk that we had when the concussion laws changed in North Dakota, we probably spoke to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 parents and athletes as well as other coaches. And I think that was so valuable. A lot of the education stuff that we do now is geared towards a lot of coaches. Every year I do a talk at the YMCA with the youth football coaches. We talk to the rec softball or baseball coaches and talk to them about different things with heat illness, lightning, concussion, what to do if someone's hurt, where they can go see somebody, like because we have our Mesa location open in the summer as well. So I think a lot of the education is depending on what people want. So I actually had a coach from Kenmare, a basketball coach from Kenmare, probably 15 years ago, and said, "Robyn, will you meet with my girls and talk to them about wearing high-heeled shoes to basketball games?" I said, "I would be more than happy to do that because they should not be doing that because that's just the worst possible shoe you could wear, especially on a game day, So if there's a topic out there that coaches or athletes or parents want more knowledge about, we're more than happy to meet with those groups and give them the education or try to find out questions that they might have and find them the answers if we don't know them at the time."
Wanted to get into a couple of other athletic training things or other medical things that you've been a part of. Tell us a little bit about how you've been able to help with the Mid-Dakota American Red Cross, because everybody thinks Trinity when they think Robyn Gust, but I also saw that you were involved in that.
Yeah, I've been very involved in the Red Cross in the last couple of years. That's kind of gone to the wayside, obviously, with some personal life changes. But that kind of started with Hurricane Katrina when that hit, and it was started with fundraising, and that's kind of been my primary goal for the Red Cross. This co-ed softball team I was playing on the time when we were at a softball tournament, we were talking about that. We're like, we should do something. We should raise some money. So we decided to throw together something really quick, end up raising about $800. And it kind of became an annual thing to do a fundraiser for the money to stay here locally. So my role there has been primarily on the fundraising side of it. We would run, I called it the Fall Chill co-ed softball tournament here in Minot, where we would do an event, usually at one of our local establishments, where we do a all-you-can-eat and drink thing and raise a bunch of money and silent auction type stuff. And then the tournament was and every penny went to the Red Cross. So over the years, probably, if I had to guess, I'd probably say 30,000 plus that we've been able to raise in the community for the local Red Cross.
How did your help with the U.S. Deaf Olympic Sports Medicine team come about?
As a student at Morehead State, which is, Minnesota State University Morehead, I guess it's called now, I happened to read about the USA Deaf team in our National Athletic Trainers Association news thing that comes out every week or every month. And I went, that would be really cool. And I always was interested in sign language. So I kind of looked into it, and it said you had to be certified for at least a year, be fluent in sign language. So I just kind of put that in my back pocket as a junior, and then started sign language classes and trying to get prep for that, and reached out in the world of the new web, because this was back in 1996 when we didn't have what we have now, and got in touch with people that were involved with that and got invited to a training camp in Iowa, which was an eye-opener for me. Who knew you could work basketball and it'd be so unnerving because the only sound you hear is the bouncing of a ball. There's nobody talking, because it's, and it was like I was going out of my mind. It was just such a weird environment. And you don't really think about that kind of a thing. But I did a training camp with them, and then they invited me onto the team in '97 to go to Copenhagen, Denmark, and it's all kind of history from there. And I actually tried to step away once, and then they said, I believe the phone call I got was, "Robyn, your country needs you."
Oh,
and we were going to Taiwan, so I ended up going to Taiwan. And that has just been a tremendous, tremendous part of my life. And I've met so many amazing athletic trainers from across the country and the world. It was really, 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 really great.
So then you could turn on KMOT, of course, and then you could mute Doug Burgum and literally go off the sign language lady to see what's going on.
I'm pretty rusty now. Okay. You really have to keep up with it. So usually for me, when I work with the deaf, it takes me about 3 or 4 days before I'm able to really have a good communication with them. So right now I can catch basically kind of words and such now.
I was going to say, if you're rusty on it, is it a matter of like repeat what you just said, or do they have to say something different with their hands that's simpler?
I just have to remember what the signs are.
Okay.
And she goes really fast because he's talking really fast. So, and there's a lot of, there's some deaf people that work at our Redeemers who I love communicating with because they help me keep up on my sign language skills, and they always make it a point to come and talk to me so that I can do that. But working with the deaf has definitely made me a better all-around person as well as an athletic trainer. It was a tremendous experience for me.
Brought up Copenhagen. Your bio has you in Rome, Melbourne, Taipei, and Turkey with, I'm calling them for short, the US DOC SMT.
Yeah, that works.
Any cool traveling experiences being international with them?
It was never a good experience.
Oh, crap. You didn't have any time away?
Traveling internationally. Yeah. I mean, the
Okay.
travel part of it, the flying part of it, we always
That's
had
not what I'm referring to.
Oh,
like
okay.
The airplane food.
Right.
I'm talking about being there.
Well, they actually overhead paged a deaf team and told us that 6 of our members were not on the next flight. And I one of them was me, and I caught it that was my name kind of when we were actually on our layover in, I think we were in Iceland. And I went to the desk and I said, "Did you just overhead page me?" They said, "Yes." And these other people, I said, "You just realized you overhead paged a deaf team, right? Doesn't work well." "Oh, that does say that they're deaf here." I'm like, "Yes, you can't actually page them." So the travel part was awful.
Wow.
But I mean, every trip that I went on was phenomenal, and I think Copenhagen was the most challenging. There was not any method of communication for us at that time because texting wasn't a thing. Everything was just a regular phone. That was in 1997, I think. And cell phones were just getting going. So if you had a cell phone, it was a Zach Morris phone, and there was no such thing as an international one. So
a Zach Morris phone?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
I bought I bought an S10 today. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, and then when we went to Rome in 2001, it was a whole new world because there was phones with texting. So we could communicate with each other because on our medical staff, we were about 50-50 as far as hearing people and deaf people. So we were able to communicate so much better, and it was just such a different challenge to not have that communication piece when we were in Copenhagen. And then I was hesitant to go to Taiwan, and I've never been so glad to go on a trip. It really amazingly exceeded my expectations in Taiwan. It was amazing.
I have Taipei food dinners every day. They're frozen out of Marketplace. You don't have to do anything. You just put them in the microwave 4.5 minutes.
I'm going to say they don't do them justice. And if you've never had dragon fruit from the source, you're missing out.
Yeah, I've only had like dragon fruit vitamin water.
Yeah, not the same either. But
No.
Yeah, Taipei was just very interesting. And I learned a lot I love learning the new cultures. Mm-hmm. And Turkey was Turkey. It was a little nerve-wracking. There was a bomb that had gone off right in front of the U.S. Embassy a week before we went there. So you had to be, we were very careful. We didn't wear our USA gear out of the hotel at all. If we were on our way to a game or a practice, you had to make sure you were in regular street clothes, and you had to be careful. As females, you kind of had to be a little bit careful about what you wore there as well.
Mm-hmm. Domestically, you've been around a little bit too. I'm wondering, even just being in different spots of the country, have you learned any kind of new perspectives that you can definitely use today between, Bismarck, Colorado, Fargo, Moorhead, the cities, Florida, South Dakota, you've been everywhere?
Around the States, there's, I don't feel like there's such a huge difference. Mm-hmm. We all kind of have the same type of treatment methods. Everybody's got their little nuances, but the biggest time you had to make adjustments was definitely international. The only other countries that believe in ice are Canada and Australia. So, and that's a kind of a staple for us as far as injury treatment and
like what's the rest of the world doing or what?
Yeah, cold spray. They use like an ethyl chloride type cold spray rather than an actual ice bag. And just the methods that they do, I'm not saying that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just Western medicine versus a lot of other types of, I guess we'd call them non-traditional types of medicine. Trying to find Tylenol in Taiwan was actually the biggest challenge that I've ever faced. And we actually had to get a hold of one of our our soccer players' moms to bring another bottle of Tylenol from the States. We could not find Tylenol in Taiwan.
It's so rare. There's not like, what is it, like a Taiwanese word for
Yeah.
Tylenol or what?
I went to 4 different pharmacies.
It's probably not the word for their
Yeah,
language.
no, it
Okay.
wasn't, but they were trying, and one of them even spoke English, and he was just not finding it. And I don't know. I'm sure they probably have it, but there was no translation for it, for acetaminophen or Tylenol. So it was traveling internationally, you use your skills more than your toys. Like in the States, we have all kinds of great stuff, toys that we can use to work on people. And then when you travel internationally, it's all your brains and your hands. Mm-hmm. So you have to really learn a different way.
Coming back closer to home, this question is, it's not coming from Garrett Koch, former Minot Daily News sports editor, but it's a for him. You got your master's degree at Western Illinois, is that right?
Did.
He's a leatherneck.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, he is. I went to Western at NDSU a couple years back with him, and that was actually a tight game for NDSU football. So just for him, what did you like about Macomb?
I loved Macomb. I loved the size of Macomb, and Macomb is definitely a college town. One of my great experiences that I had there was the Patty Lacey was my supervisor at Macomb, and right away after I got to know her, she really put a lot of trust in me, and I was able to do a lot of stuff that I think probably graduate assistants aren't able to do, and I was able to get so much more experience out of my graduate assistant position than I think I was probably intending to. I just really liked the city. I was very, very excited to be there, and actually Western Illinois' athletic training programs is one of the first ones in the country. So to be a part of that and teach those students, that's where I really fell in love with teaching the students, was actually at my time at Macomb.
The pedigree.
Yeah.
So impressive. So now that you're back here, I touched on it a little bit, you're everywhere for all these different teams, but it seems like Minot State hockey means like something really important to you.
Yeah.
Either you've been with the team like since it started, right? I mean,
since I've been with them since January of 2000. I think the
pretty
inception
close.
of the team was like 97.
Okay, so
pretty close.
All right, so pretty close to the entire history of the program. You've been with them, and obviously after your husband Mike's accident, they've been there for you a lot. So I'm just curious if you could just tell people, like open-ended, what does your relationship with the team mean to you before that happened and then since then?
Well, I've been through the gamut with Minot State. I mean, ever since I started working with them in 2000, they were a successful team. Brian Wilkie was the coach at that time. They were a different style of player. They were a different style of coach, different style of hockey. And then when he left, there was a few rough years, in that time, and where we actually didn't go to nationals, which is kind of a shocker because that was just been something that's kind of been the norm for Minot State hockey. And then when Sheldon Schneider was named the head coach, kind of got us on the path that we're on now, and Wade was his assistant coach at that time. So, I mean, I've been through them with the ups and downs, and there were some pretty low downs, almost to the point where like, wow, is there going to be a team next year? And to look at coming from that point to going, wow, I sure hope that we have a team next year, to this is our second national title, has just been the most tremendous experience. And Wade and Waz, I'm sad to hear that Waz is no longer going to be working with us, but I've known them since they were players, and then going from them being players to coaches was smooth transition, and the amount of respect that they had for my decisions as a medical person, and we had such a great working relationship that's so important. And the guys are they're great guys. I think and that's a testament to the recruiting style of the coach. There was Patty Lacey, my supervisor at Western, once told me a bit of wisdom of hers, and she said that in all her years of athletic training, what she noticed that coaches tend to recruit personalities of themselves. And I've never seen that so true as I have with Minot State, because for Wade, he wants you to be a good hockey player. You need to be a good hockey player. But at the same time, if you're not a good person, he doesn't want you no matter how good of a player you are.
Before you keep going with that, I was just curious with what you brought up. They're good dudes. They respect you as a medical person. Has there ever been, like throughout your career, where, boy, the coach really wants the kid in the game?
I was told at Western Illinois by the head basketball coach as a second-year GA to get the bleep out of my gym and get the bleeping kid on the floor. And I said, okay. And I went back to the training room and I said to this young man who was our starting center, I go, how many pairs of basketball shoes do you have here? He goes, 2. I said, go get them for me. He said, why? I said, I just want to check something out. So he went and got his shoes and gave them to me. And I went, put them in the office and I shut the door and I locked it. And then I went back out and I said, so-and-so has an appointment with our team doctor here in an hour. If he says he can play, he can play. And then he got really pissed at me and took his rolled up piece of paper right in my nose and kind of swore at me again and said, yeah, I don't care what you say, you go get your shoes on. And the kid goes, Coach, she stole my shoes, and locked them in the office. So he goes, you did what? Go get his shoes. I'm like, I'm not going to get his shoes because I thought he had some slip discs in his back. And then sent the young man to the doctor, and the doctor came back and said no participation until cleared by physician, MRI scheduled for tomorrow, and he had 3 slip discs in his back.
Exactly right.
Yeah. It's you do have that. I don't feel like we have that as much as we used to, but yeah, you run into that every now and then, and I don't fault them for it. It's their, especially at some levels, you win or you lose your job, and I always tell anybody that gets, how can you be that way? And my job is to be the rational voice in an irrational, passionate situation. That's why we're hired to be there. We're not, do I want Minot State to lose? No. I want them to win, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of anybody on that team.
All right, so back to the guys that don't give you grief.
Yeah.
Just picking up on that relationship you have with them.
Well, we really worked hard with the hockey team. Those guys work hard, and we've also have started working with them in our dryland room and doing some injury prevention with them. And I've just gotten really close. Mike's son, Austin, his first hockey experience was at a Minot State game, and then he went into the locker room, and the guys made him just feel like the most important kid ever. They're just such a great group of guys. And then after Mike got hurt, they right away for his birthday, they sent him an autographed jersey, and then when we came back, it was, Robyn, if you need anything. I mean, they moved us 3 times, and it took them an hour and a half to 2 hours, I think, to move us out of the apartment that we were in into our new house, hauling everything from the apartment and everything from the garage and putting it where it needed to be. I mean, that just goes to tell you that, we are very important to them, just like they're so important in our lives. And they always were on video chat with Mike. And when he was in Omaha and when I'd be working games, they'd always chat with him. And that was such a upbeat thing for him. And because he was really depressed down there, especially in the last 3 months that we were down there, he was really depressed, but it would really lift his spirits for the guys to talk to him and for them to see him on video.
I can't blame the guy. I mean, how much does it boost, like, not only the team communication, but, they win the natty when you guys are fighting your own battle,
Yeah. And then they told him, 2 of the guys told him that day they were going to win the national tournament for him. So, and then made sure that he got a hat, and then made sure that he got a medal. So, they're really special.
Every time that you kind of post about you guys doing stuff together, you always kind of call him like Miracle Mike or something like that. God, I love him so much. Can you tell me a little bit about how much that moniker rings true, given what it looked like when the accident first happened? Yeah. Well,
the day that he was injured was July 12th, 2018. And Mike was at a work conference in Bismarck, and he was driving back from Bismarck to Minot and got distracted and ran into the back of a lumber hauling truck, and it was really bad. He was airlifted to Sanford in Bismarck and underwent immediate brain surgery, as well as shoulder surgery. He was missing a piece of his shoulder, and they never really gave you odds, so to speak. But my sister had heard the neurosurgeon over saying to one of the nurses that this guy has probably 1% chance of survival. And she said she told me that, but I don't remember that at that time. But I mean, I was in shock for I don't know how long. Mm-hmm. So, but we just never gave up, and just really rallied around him, and we did a lot of praying. A lot of people did a lot praying around the country, praying around the world. Put that out there, and it was just like everything just kind of fell into place with how things kind of started when he started to kind of wake up and recover a little bit, and then the move to Madonna. And then it turned out that we had people there with our Leslie and Torrin Berge, our former physical therapist from Trinity that lived down there, and then some family friends. So when I wasn't down there, they were there supporting him. So it was just like everything seemed to fall into place. So the fact that he survived the accident alone is a miracle. And then I also went to visit with the EMTs, the EMT crew that saved his life in Washburn. And they said the same thing. They're like, the person who answered the call wasn't even on call that night. She just was closest, so she went there, and right away she asked for the life flight. If that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have made it. It was just a matter of minutes, and how they decided to extract him through the top of the pickup because the roof was torn off, rather than try to take him out the door. That took minutes off of, it could have gone either way. I was really preparing for it to go another way, praying to God that it wouldn't, but if that's the way things needed to be. I wanted him to have a full life, or for him to go be with his brother, so to speak. And I think we have a very full life, very happy life. It's not without its bumps along the way, but he's definitely Miracle Mike, just from the word go.
Yeah,
it's been a miracle.
I wonder when, doctors even think about telling people real odds, like you said, you weren't going to hear it about that. How long did you kind of wonder, one way or the other with it? Was he not out of the woods for a long time, or?
He was in the coma from July 12th. He opened his eyes on July 30th, but I won't say he was out of the coma then. He just opened his eyes. There was really nobody home. But probably, and I can't remember if it was day 10, my friend Vanessa and I were in the ICU with him. And I was holding his right hand, and his right hand was always busy. And that was, it's a right side brain injury, the left side, kind of like a stroke, the left side shuts down. And Vanessa was holding his left hand. And I said, Vanessa, do you want to change hands with me? Because this hand would squeeze and stuff. And it was probably neuro, even though we all wanted it to be more than that. It was more of a neuro reaction. And she said yes. So we switched spots. And I was talking up by his head. And all of a sudden, he reached up his arm and reached over towards my voice. And we both just looked at each other and said, you better get back over here. And I'm like, yep. And that was the very first purposeful movement that we had seen. And I want to say it was day 10 or 11. I can't remember. And I just looked at her and I'm like, all right, here we go. He's going to fight. That to me was his message to me, that he was not going to give up and that he was going to try to fight to come back to us.
Yeah, those had to be some long days for I was in a wreck myself, and I couldn't imagine what my parents were up to during that time. So I don't want to just delve deep dive too much, but a lot of people in local sports know who you are, Robyn, from all the games and stuff. So I wanted to know, even past the hockey team, what did it mean to have the help that you received after the accident from everyone that you got the help from?
Well, on one of my darkest days down in Bismarck, one of my darkest days, because we were trying to get Mike to Madonna, and there were holdups and there were hiccups, and one of my darkest days, all of a sudden I received this package of sunshine, and that's literally what it was. And it was all yellow items from the Our Redeemers girls volleyball team. So it was yellow Skittles, it was yellow gum, it was yellow everything, and every single one of the ladies had written on a note card just either a prayer or words of encouragement. And it was just, every time I just felt like I was down in the dumps, something like that would happen, where I would just somebody would reach out to me from Stanley, because Mike was coaching wrestling in Stanley at the time, where it would be one of the kids, one of the moms had reached out and said, we were talking about Mike's accident, and I wish I remembered who it was. And the young man goes, he's going to be okay, Mom. It's Honeyman. And you just, all of a sudden it would just be something that would just pick your spirits back up. And then the hundreds and thousands of emails and text messages and notes on Mike's Facebook page. And I read him every single one. And there's just no words you can put to how important that is, to not giving up yourself when things don't look like they could go very well.
You guys are probably hammered with messages every single day, but isn't it kind of funny how it works, where you say you don't have a good day, maybe you have a better day and a really bad day as you're fighting through that. It seems like those real big gestures come at the toughest days, you know?
It was, I just still can't thank people enough for what they did. I mean, one of the first things Mike received down in Omaha was a box full of cards from the Lutheran ministry up in Botno, that where each kid in Sunday school had made him a handmade card, and then sent a bear that had been at church so that the prayers would come with the bear to him, in Lincoln. That was actually when we were in Lincoln. But those types of things from so many people that we didn't even know, and yes, maybe they know me, or they might know my family or somebody associated with Mike, but it was just amazing, and it still is amazing to this day, that people stopped us at the fair last year. When we were at a concert at the fair last year, there was a lady that came up to us and just hugged me and shook Mike's hand and just said, "I have watched your Facebook page religiously. You inspire so many people." And I'll tell Mike, I'm like, "This person says they inspire you," and he'll go, "I don't understand why." Like, well, you were dead.
He kind of laughs about it a little bit.
He just doesn't get it.
He can be a little carefree and and what he thinks about it.
That's no big deal. He'll shrug his shoulders and kind of smile, and I'm like, "Honey," I'm like, "you don't get it." I'm like, you were knocking at heaven's door, and now you're here. So
that was
kind of a big deal.
That was another quick point. How much did the plane tickets to Omaha set you back during all this?
Oh, absolutely nothing, because of our community being so absolutely amazing. The number of fundraisers allowed for me to fly back and forth, as well as fly some of Mike's family members down there and my family members down there to be supportive. So with just, that's our communities, I should say, not just the Minot community, but Kramer community had a fundraiser. Stanley had a fundraiser. There was a fundraiser in Hettinger. There was two in Minot. It's just, I needed nothing because I had everything. And the amount of stress that relieved for me and my family was just, you can't really put that into words.
So Mike can still be the kind of guy, like, what are you looking at me for? Like, humbly yours or whatever. Yeah. How much has he been able to recover? And I mean, what's the future like?
Well, we kind of had to come to a halt for a few things that we've been doing, because we had been going to Fargo for hyperbarics, and now COVID has kind of put a screeching halt to that, unfortunately, as well as we had been trying to see a neurooptometrist, and that was also in Fargo, so we had to put that off, and we finally got that done and found he has some major vision issues, and just got the glasses that help him with his proprioception, help him with his convergence with his eyes, with fine motor stuff. So there's still ways for him to improve, but I mean, he dresses himself, he feeds himself, he gets himself ready in the morning. We still have to help him with like transferring from chair to that kind of thing. He does most of his walking in his chair, but now with the glasses, I think that's going to open up a whole new realm for us, and maybe he can do more walking on his own rather than walking in the wheelchair. So we don't know. I don't. Everybody's like, "So is he completely recovered?" And I'm saying, no. I think there's more to come.
Mm-hmm. And you guys just keep working, keep fighting to get better day after day. That process for sure. What have you kind of learned about situations like this for families or even single adults that maybe don't have a lot of help next to them, since you've changed from you're being out of the group of people like me, where I'm like, boy, Robyn, you're really strong. I can only imagine if I was in this situation, to going through it.
I think Scarlett Schneider. You remember? Is that familiar with you?
Yeah, we did the Guns N' Hoses hockey game.
Right.
Yeah.
I was a part of that fundraiser for her, and so is Mike, actually. And then the next year it was done for us, which just blew my mind. And I think that was a piece of humble pie in a way, because you don't think, I love to do that for other people and help them. That's the way my family's always been. We've always been that way. Ever since I was a little girl, Mom was like, "Take these over to Mrs. Hunter, she needs these buns today." So I'd walk them over to a little lady's house in Kramer, and it just made you feel so good. And it's just something that we learned growing up. And then now kind of accepting that help was a hard pill to swallow. My friend Vanessa told me that early on, when I was trying to be so strong and I'm going to do this. Nope, I'm fine. And then she told me, "Robyn, every time someone offers you help and you turn them down, that you're actually hurting them." And I just went, "What?" She goes, it's the only way they know how to help you, and you're not allowing it. And I just went, oh my gosh. So that was one of the biggest things I've learned from this situation, is to actually allow people to help me, because I'm a very strong, independent person, very strong-willed person, and I want to be that strong person. But no matter how strong you are, when someone offers help, flip and take it.
Yeah.
It makes your life so much better. And I'm not going to say easier, but it releases the burden off of you a little bit, and it allows someone to feel that they've done something for you, and don't take that away from people. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and please accept help when people offer.
And that's not only even like for your situation. It could be somebody that's not hurt as bad, somebody that's battling mental health.
Right.
I mean, like, I've moved away from home a few different times, and like my family says, like, don't ever go it alone. Like,
Right.
people are going to be there for you. It kind of like works no matter what you're going through.
I think that for someone who would be going through, and something like Mike, or it could be something different. Maybe it's cancer. Maybe it's some other physical battle. I think that the hardest thing to do is to ask for that help, though. And I think that especially if I know you're a transplant, so, and you're almost a North Dakotan, but I don't know if you're quite there yet, Ben.
5 years right now.
Right. But North Dakotans are tough. We always want to be tough, and I can do this on my own. We need to kind of push that aside and go, North Dakotans are also nice. So if I go, I really need some help here, so many people are going to want to help you that you might almost get overwhelmed with it. But I think that's the biggest message that I would say to somebody who maybe they don't have the support system that I had going into this, is let people do that. If you belong to a church and they're offering to help, let that church help. Maybe it's not a church. Maybe it's a softball team. Maybe it's a dart team, pool team, whatever it is. They offer to help you. Don't turn them down. Let them do those things for you, and it'll help lift you up a lot more.
You talk like you grow up a lot about just having like that helpful gene and stuff, helping the hunters or whoever up in Kramer and stuff. Wondering, how has your medical training experience, obviously medical people are really compassionate and all that stuff, but maybe even just technical knowledge, or just, again, that compassion and like wanting to help really hard. How has that helped you the most since, being with Mike?
I hated it in the beginning.
Okay.
It was an absolute curse in the beginning, because I knew what was going on. Is knowing my training from head injuries and concussions, and what we look for with unconscious athletes, and just seeing those things happen with his blood pressure dropping, his heart rate going up, losing a gag reflex, and I would walk out of the room and I would do this thing called a Babinski, which is where you take your thumb and you run it from the heel to the toes, and if the toes flail up, we're in trouble, but if they curl down, you're in good shape. And I would do that, and everybody would go, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. But it was just, I couldn't help myself, and I was just, it was torture at the beginning, because I knew what was happening, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, when things started to turn around, but at the same time, I also had other medical people I could feed off of. My good friend Lisa Burke is an OT, and she came down to visit, and she goes, well, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? I'm like, I don't know, Lisa. I'm an athletic trainer. You're the OT. And she goes, well, ask for this and ask for that. And I did that, and then he got those things that she felt that he should have had. You
said that you didn't really like it at the start, but when you started getting better, do you feel like the process was enriched more because you knew more about it?
I think, in all honesty, if I didn't have the medical background that I had going into places like Madonna, probably more Madonna than QLI, and Madonna was where we flew from, right from the ICU, I don't think his recovery would have been as good, because I knew about patient advocacy, I knew about patient rights, I knew a lot. I didn't know as much as I know now, obviously, about brain injuries and this type of a thing, but with hospital regulations and everything that we learn at Trinity, being a part of that organization, I was a pain in their butt, because I knew that if this is supposed to happen, you're supposed to do that, So I think that because of that knowledge, I was able to be a better patient advocate for Mike, whereas people who don't have that type of a background don't know to ask those questions. So that's one of the other things I would say to people who have a loved one in that situation is learn how to be that advocate. Reach out to somebody who might have that knowledge, that medical knowledge, and go, this is what they're telling me, and then they can go, well, that's a load of crap, and this is what you need to do. Because I'm sure. I think probably by the time we left the first floor at Madonna, they probably had to go, oh, thank God she's gone. Because I was a thorn in their side. But it was because I wanted things to be a certain way for him. And if you tell me that this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. We're not going to change the plan without you checking with me. So the medical knowledge definitely on the first third of it was torture. And then the other 2/3 was, if I didn't have that knowledge, I think that it would have been a whole different story.
Yeah, what about like since your home life? You guys are here now.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. I know what to watch for with a lot of little things, and I have connections with people where if I because I'm in the medical community, where if I'm not quite sure, because I'm like it is still a new area for me. My head injury knowledge was limited to concussions, not severe TBIs like what Mike has, but and it's still, I think it's very helpful.
Something that he has been awesome at, I think, that I've seen on Facebook a lot, has been the cooking. The grilling and all that good stuff. I've seen some great barbecue documentation about Mike's skills there. I mean, what's like the best thing that he makes?
He likes to grill up a steak. That's his favorite thing to grill up a steak. Make an apple pie. And that's a part of his therapy. It's part of his occupational therapy is to go through that process and do those things and put them together. So yeah, he enjoys that.
What does it mean? What do his Stanley Blue Jays and then I guess Our Redeemers Knights mean to him? Because you guys are there all the time.
Yeah, the Blue Jays are very special to Mike, and actually, the Stanley Wrestling Boys were the handed out the programs and collected the gifts at our wedding blessing. The Our Redeemers ladies volleyball team, they were our food servers, and the Minot State hockey guys were our ushers. So they were also, that's important to us that we wanted them to be a part of our big day. So those are teams that we've gotten to know really well. I've got a lot of teams out there that that have become special to me, but those are probably the ones that we've gotten to know the best, I guess. And for Our Redeemers, it's because I work a lot with them in the summer, not just during the season. So I get to know those teams really well and the coaches really well. And Mike coached wrestling at Stanley, I believe, for 3 years before his accident. So he got to know those kids and those parents really well. So there's a special relationship there.
I did a podcast with Joe Mellenbrook. I'm not sure if you remember him. He was a sports editor before Garrick Hodge was here. Okay, so he's a big Minnesota sports fan. I do all these questions about the Vikings, the Twins, what have you, and stuff. And you could tell where his allegiances laid the most over the whole interview. So probably wasn't the best prep on my part, but what I said at the very end, like, okay, we've talked about all these Minnesota teams. What's like the best championship that you want to see? He's like, well, have you been listening to me? It has to be the Vikings, right? So with you guys, we talked a lot about MSU hockey, Stanley ORCS. If you would give me like a top 5 list of like local sports, like state or national championships, what would mean the most to you and Mike?
Minot State's hockey national titles. Can I put them as one together? The first one they won, it was like, it's about time, boys.
Or like ones that you want to see happen.
They want to see happen?
Yeah.
I would like to see the women's hockey team take the national title. They deserve it.
They've been right there.
Yeah, they deserve it. And in such a short time. If you look at 1997 was when the men got started, and the women we're looking at, what are they, 10 years now that they've been a team? Maybe around there. So to come from where they started to where they are now, I'd love to see them. I would love to see them take a title. Our Redeemers volleyball, still grasping at that ring. They've been to state multiple times, and they've been so close to getting the championship, but they just haven't been able to pull that one down yet. Trying to think who else.
Seeing Stanley would be a throwback, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see. I felt really, 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 really bad for one of Mike's wrestlers. Cody Rudolph was the regional champion at his weight class, and unfortunately got disqualified because of a skin condition that went misdiagnosed, so didn't even get to wrestle. And I just feel my heart goes out to him because he was a senior, so he never got that opportunity. And we were really hoping that it could happen for him, but yeah, there's just, I don't know, there's so many that it's hard for me to pin them all down. I'd love to see I really feel like our volleyball team at Minot State has just consistent improvement. I would love to see, them really have a great year. They've had some down years, and they're starting to kind of climb up there, and I'd love to see that happen for them. There's so many, I don't know. That's a tough question for me.
Yeah,
It's a really tough question
even at
for
5,
me.
it's hard
Yeah,
to do that.
Would I give you a 4 so far? 'Cause
Yeah, 4-ish.
Cody
yeah.
doesn't. He kind of counts, but doesn't really count because he can't go back and do that. But and then of course our wrestler at Minot State that didn't get to compete either.
Yeah.
I would love for him to go back and be able to have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's been the tune this year for a lot of people, but Robyn, this has been it's an incredible story seeing what you guys continue to fight through, and just you're here obviously for a lot of people as they continue their sports careers, and just the community gives right back to you. I mean, you mean a lot to this town, and I really appreciate your time and sharing.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great trip down memory road. Some of the things I haven't thought about for a long time, so it's been fantastic.
I do my research.
Yes, you do, and I appreciate that. All the way back to the '90s.
There we go. Back to the '90s. That's Robyn Gust of Trinity Sports Medicine. Thank you.